Hello and welcome to Sex Ed with Coach Catasha. Today we have a new entry to our Ask Coach Catasha, and this one is actually pretty interesting. So let's get right into it. My partner, 37 male, never seems to be interested in sex. I, 39 female, feel like I'm finally hitting my sexual peak, but my partner can't keep up with my desires. We both work mentally stressful jobs, but neither one of us does hard labor on a daily basis. We have one child, 14-year-old, but he's pretty much self-sufficient like most teens. I've tried lingerie, role play, and kinky date nights, but he doesn't seem interested in most days, and it feels like he's going through the motions for me. I learned about asexuality recently, and I'm wondering if that's the issue. He has never been particularly interested in sex, but I just thought it was our lives at the time. Could he be asexual? So, okay. So technically, about 1% of the population is do consider themselves aces or asexuals. So there's a high probability that that's not the case, but it is still a possibility. There are probably a lot more people in the world who are asexual, but just don't really understand what asexuality is. So let me explain a little bit about what asexuality is. And, you of course have more details than me. So maybe, it'll start fitting together if that is the case. So someone who is considered asexual means that they don't build sexual desire in the same way that other people do. Now, it doesn't mean that they never want sex. There's layers, just like every other type of sexual. You can be gray sexual, you can be demisexual, you can be a lot of other things that fall under the umbrella of asexual. Gray sexual means that someone, may develop sexual feelings at the time, but it's contingent on a lot of different things. Demisexual means that people grow emotional attachments that make them want to engage in sexual activity. But for the most part, asexual people do not build the bridge that leads to sexual desire. So they don't necessarily, the things that happen to you that may, spark that, okay, it's time to get going, may not work the same for them. And so asexuality is considered a form of sexuality, just the way as, heterosexuality, homosexuality, pansexual, all of those things are a form of sexuality, and asexual is also a form of sexuality. But here's the kicker. I think that one thing that people don't realize a lot with men is that men do undergo a lot of stress, especially if you have a mentally stressful job. A physically stressful job can also be tiring, but that's tiring to the body. So that doesn't necessarily have an effect on the mind, but a mentally stressful job could throw you into a place where you don't make the room to be sexual. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they are asexual, but there may be other things that, men don't have the space to discuss that may be causing the problem. Not necessarily you, or it could be you. It could be, how you react to things. Are you creating a safe space for your partner to be able to talk about what's going on in their lives? Are they in therapy? You never know. There could be something, in their past that could be, if you're saying that if you feel like it's always kind of been that way, but you thought it was something else, but now that that's not an issue, you think it's still moving that way, it could be something way more underlying. And again, men don't have these discussions. They're not having them with their doctors. Their doctors aren't having them with them. He could be experiencing some kind of erectile dysfunction. He could have just low libido due to a chronic illness, or medications could be causing his sexual desire to be diminished. There are a lot of different things. The same way with women, we have a lot more conversation around the desire of women because men are inherently supposed to be sexual, but that is absolutely not the case. It's just, that's a form of the patriarchy winning again. But men absolutely have stressors that could cause them to have a low libido. They could have a reaction to different kind of medicines, different pharmacology could cause them to have lower libidos, chronic illnesses like diabetes, type 1, type 2, hypertension, because it messes with your vascular system, could have an effect on your sexual function. So there are a lot of different things that could be at play here that may not be asexuality, but I would not take asexuality off the table, because some people just don't build those bridges that make them want to have sex. And there's nothing wrong with that. Usually there's a way for partners to meet in the middle, right? That would be something you would actually have to discuss with your partner, and what feels like a good place, because you don't want to feel like you're forcing your partner to engage in sexual activity, but you also want to make sure that your needs are being met as well. And if you are in a working relationship, which, if you guys have a 14-year-old, that means that you've at least been doing this for 14 years, that you should be able to build some rapport where you can have that discussion and keep an open mind. If you are going into that relationship, going into that conversation, don't go into that conversation is there something wrong with me? Is there something that I'm not doing? Am I too fat? Blah, blah, blah. So many times it has nothing to do with you, but it feels personal when people don't want to have sex with us, but that is a feeling and not necessarily rooted in the facts of what's actually going on. So the possibility of your partner being asexual is a possible. It is a possible. But again, only about 1.5% of the population identifies asexual for what we know. So, it is a possibility, but it's a very slim chance. Again, doesn't mean that it's no chance at all, but it could be a bunch of other things that you may need to discuss further. So I would go into that conversation not necessarily saying, hey, my needs aren't being met. Is this me? What am I doing wrong? Blah, blah, blah. But just kind of gauging what they have going on. Talk to me about work. I'm noticing that we're not being as intimate as, we were before, or as much as I would like. Is there anything that I could do to help us, to get us back on track, or is there any conversations we need to have? Because I would really like to spend more intimate time with you. And you should be able to get to the bottom of that. If it is asexuality and, your partner is asexual and doesn't really realize it, that is a whole different lifestyle. And a lot of the times we don't know that our feelings have names, and the things that we feel have names. And so being able to say, hey, this thing that you're experiencing is an actual thing. It's not something that you're making up or something that's happening in your mind. Here's a little more information on it. And maybe you two can use that information to work the situation a little bit better. Okay. I hope that answered your question. If you have any additional questions, you can reach me at expressionofrepression@gmail.com or Coach Catasha at expressionofrepression.com. Play nice.